If you're building a kegerator or Keezer from scratch, or it's just time to change out your lines, we highly recommend you consider Duotight fittings and EVABarrier tubing. These two combine really easily. They're just push to connect, no messing with worm clamps or having to cut your lines when it's time to change them. So yeah, today we're gonna be changing out my Keezer, which has just a standard setup, and we're gonna be converting it to what you see here. So let's see what we got. All right, now let's check out the current state of my Keezer. All right, let's see what's under the hood. Yeah, big old mess. As you can see, I've been neglecting my lines a little bit. I did not take proper care of them and then kind of just forgot about them as I went on vacation. But yeah, as you can see, this is just kind of just your standard line, a flared QD to your little flare nut here, and then there's a barb, and then you've got your hose clamp. So a bunch of stuff that we can completely get rid of and replace with just that Duotight adapter there. Gas line, kind of the same thing. You got to go to a different sized barb here. So already it's a little bit of a pain in the butt. And yeah, this is just kind of a standard manifold here. It's worked really well, honestly, the whole time I've had it. But you can't actually replace these guys with any type of Duotight fitting that is at least available at the moment. So this guy's gonna go and get replaced with the KOMOS model. So as you can see, my lines have been a little bit neglected, I will say, but I can already imagine how it's going to be to take care of my lines once they're all fitted out with Duotight fittings. Literally being able to take the lines out of the fittings without having to cut them and just redo this whole thing. You know, part of the reason it led to this neglect is because it takes a lot of work to kind of clean and maintain and modify and do all those things when you're using standard line and hose clamps. And there's no way to get these off essentially once they're on there other than cutting them. This will save me some blood, sweat, and tears, I hope. All right, let's get down with the demolition phase, and then we'll start the fun install part. And we're gonna swap it out for everything you see here. All right, one of the more fun pieces we have here is the KOMOS Manifold. It comes with flare threaded fittings, which is great because you just pop on a couple of Duotights wherever your lines are coming out, and then also from where your gas is going in. So this can go from the gas regulator right into the manifold and out all through flare threaded connections and Duotight tubing, which leads into the KOMOS regulator itself. As you can see, it comes with a little barb. So if you're buying it to not use with Duotight, that's totally fine. It comes with the barb, but it does come with one of these flare connections included. So you just pop this off and there you go. Flare will go in there. So we'll go flare to EVABarrier into the manifold and we'll split our gas lines and then onto the kegs they go. So what we have here are basically the workhorses of the Duotight line. This is 8mm Duotight by Male Flare. So basically anywhere you have your ball lock or pin lock QDs that are flare threaded, you can put these on there. And then also you'll see here that the KOMOS Manifold comes with flare threaded check valves. And then the other one here is, again, 8mm, all these are 8mm, by female beer thread. So beer thread, if you don't know, is basically the common thread that we use for keg couplers and draft shanks. So these will go on the back of a draft shank, or they'll be the inlet and outlet to your keg coupler. This is just a little elbow piece. So what this will do essentially is when it's on the back of a draft shank, you can just put this elbow in here, and then instead of the draft line going straight out, it'll be pointed downwards. So totally an optional thing, but can kind of keep your setup a little cleaner and the lines out of the way. And then down here, we have just check valves. So especially on your gas lines, you wanna probably put a check valve in there if your regulator doesn't have one or if your manifold doesn't have one. It's always just kind of a good backup that in case there's any situation where you might get a backflush of beer into your gas lines, it just saves you the hassle of having to clean them out and dry them and going through that whole process. So we'll install some check valves in this setup. Here is the EVABarrier line itself. I know Olin, when he showed off his kegerator, kind of went into details of these, but really good double walled tubing, small diameter, which is good for providing a lot of restriction in a short amount of length. And it's double walled, so it's really good for protecting against oxygen ingress and also protecting against CO2 loss, getting you both ways. For cutting the line, I have this little 2-in-1 tube cutter. So you can see there's a little safety there and it pops up. This is totally optional. You can use a pair of scissors, but this will help you get really clean cuts on your lines, and that will make sure that you're getting a good connection with your Duotight fittings. Also, you'll see that it has this little thing on the back that's actually for messing with these little collets. So that'll help you disengage the line from the Duotight fitting. Over here, we have these little beer tidies. So these are sized for the 8mm tubing. And basically you have a little 3M adhesive on the back. Mount your tubing, keep them out of the way. As it's called, it's a beer tidy. So this can really go a long way of keeping your setup from becoming just a total rat nest of lines. So something I definitely recommend if you're doing a mix of ball lock and commercial kegs is to use these ball lock adapters on your Sankey couplers. This just makes it so that every single gas line and beverage line that you have can just end in a ball lock QD, and then as you're swapping between kegs, the fitting stays the same. You don't have to do any changes there. So these are great. I could just keep on using these guys with the QDs that I have, but honestly, the Duotight and EVABarrier are so easy to disconnect. I'm just gonna put on Duotight adapters. One thing I did want to point out is that these guys do come with these little gaskets in there, so that will be needed on the top when you're bev out. But since this guy has the little check valve duck bill in here, you'll actually want to remove the gasket when you're connecting this guy. But again, like I said, for this setup, I'm just gonna remove these. And then these little Duotight guys go on right there. Oh, also realizing now, since I am gonna do Duotight on this, I need to completely change this line. Oh my God, I've already have to disassemble a line in order to make this work. And as you can see, that was a costly mistake. Actually, now I just want to go back to my ball lock things. Cut that entire part. I'm not gonna do Duotight adapters there. I just reminded myself of why I love these things so much, is so that every line can end in a QD. So totally staged that. That was just to show you how easy it is to connect and disconnect Duotight to EVABarrier. But these things rock. And that's it. Honestly, I think the whole thing took about 15 minutes, give or take. Really stoked on these elbows. I think for routing lines, it's gonna be great. Then we have the line tidies here, which kind of gives you options. One thing I'm already thinking is, usually what I like to do is take my line and wrap it around the top of the keg or shove it down into the colder part of the keg. So I am interested to see how that affects the beer temp and foaming with it being kind of routed around the top before it gets to the keg. But we'll find out as we go. I threw on the Duotight check valves to kind of show you how you might integrate them with your system, but since the KOMOS CO2 manifold already has check valves, I'm probably going to remove these. Also, that one on the inlet probably would make more sense closer to the CO2 regulator. That way, if I ever disconnect it from the system to use it for mobile draft, I have the check valve right next to the regulator. I might do a little bit of line shortening on the gas lines. But yeah, that very first pour with this line was just perfect. After doing a cleaning regimen, of course, always remember to clean brand new lines and between kegs and when you're changing lines. But man, I'm stoked on this setup. Everything looks really nice and clean. KOMOS'd out with the regulator and the manifold. And yeah, this is just the beginning. All right, thanks for watching, guys. Cheers. Make sure to like and subscribe.
Who is this guy? George Clooney? That was amazing.